The year 2024 could be a pivotal one for Russia, potentially marking a significant downturn in its global standing. The country faces immense pressure from multiple fronts, including a struggling economy, military setbacks, and growing internal unrest. This confluence of challenges, coupled with a united international response, has led experts like General Ben Hodges to predict a bleak future for the Russian Federation. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has backfired spectacularly, exposing the weaknesses of its military and its economy. The conflict has also unified the West against Russia, leading to crippling sanctions and diplomatic isolation. As the war drags on, the question arises, could 2024 be the year Russia's ambitions crumble? General Ben Hodges, former commander of the United States Army Europe, is among those who believe Russia is headed for a downfall. He points to several factors, including Russia's outdated military equipment, its struggling economy, and the unwavering support for Ukraine from the West. One of the most significant blows to Russia has been the unprecedented economic sanctions imposed by the West. These sanctions have targeted key sectors of the Russian economy, including finance, energy, and technology. The impact has been undeniable. With the Russian ruble plummeting in value, inflation soaring, and foreign investment drying up, the sanctions have made it incredibly difficult for Russia to conduct business internationally. Many Western companies have withdrawn from Russia, further isolating the country and depriving it of essential goods and services. The economic pain is being felt across Russian society, with ordinary citizens facing rising prices and dwindling purchasing power. The Kremlin has attempted to mitigate the impact of sanctions through various means, including import substitution and seeking alternative trading partners. However, these efforts have had limited success. The Russian economy is deeply integrated with the West, and severing those ties has come at a steep cost. Russia's military campaign in Ukraine has not gone according to plan. Despite its initial boasts of a swift victory, the Russian military has encountered fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces who have been bolstered by Western weapons and intelligence. The conflict has exposed significant weaknesses in Russia's military capabilities, particularly its logistics, command and control, and reliance on outdated equipment. The image of Russia as a formidable military power has been tarnished by its struggles in Ukraine. The conflict has showcased the effectiveness of modern Western weaponry, such as Javelin anti-tank missiles and HIMARS rocket systems, which have inflicted heavy losses on Russian forces. The war has also highlighted the bravery and determination of the Ukrainian people, who have mounted a spirited defense of their homeland. Russia's military setbacks have had a demoralizing effect on its troops and have emboldened its adversaries. The conflict has demonstrated that Russia is not the military superpower it once claimed to be, and this realization could have significant geopolitical consequences. The economic hardship and military setbacks are fueling growing discontent within Russia. Public support for the war in Ukraine is waning, and protests against the government have erupted in several cities. The Kremlin has responded with its usual heavy-handed tactics, cracking down on dissent and tightening its grip on the media. However, suppressing dissent becomes increasingly difficult when the economy is in shambles and body bags are returning from the front lines. The Russian people are feeling the pain of the war in Ukraine, both economically and emotionally, and this is creating fertile ground for unrest. The Kremlin is facing a dilemma. Continuing the war in Ukraine is becoming increasingly costly, both financially and politically. However, withdrawing from Ukraine would be seen as a humiliating defeat and could further embolden opposition forces within Russia. General Ben Hodges believes that Russia is on a path to collapse, and he predicts that 2024 could be a turning point. He argues that the combined pressure of economic sanctions, military failures, and internal unrest will prove too much for the Putin regime to withstand. Hodges points to the historical precedent of the Soviet Union, which collapsed in 1991 under the weight of its own internal contradictions. He argues that Russia is following a similar trajectory, with its centralized economy, corrupt political system, and imperial ambitions ultimately leading to its downfall. Hodges' predictions are not without their critics. Some argue that he is underestimating Russia's resilience and its ability to weather the current storm. However, even Russia's most ardent supporters would have to acknowledge that the country is facing an unprecedented set of challenges. Russia's aggression in Ukraine has backfired in another significant way. It has unified NATO like never before. The alliance, which was once seen as being in a state of drift, has been revitalized by the threat posed by Russia. NATO members have rallied to support Ukraine, providing military aid, imposing sanctions on Russia, and bolstering their own defenses. The war in Ukraine has demonstrated the importance of NATO as a bulwark against Russian aggression. It has also shown the resolve of the United States to stand by its allies in Europe. The Biden administration has taken a tough stance against Russia, providing billions of dollars in military aid to Ukraine and working with European allies to impose crippling sanctions on Moscow. The unity and resolve of NATO are in stark contrast to the disarray and division within Russia. The war in Ukraine has exposed the weaknesses of Russia's political system and its inability to effectively manage a major international crisis. Section 7. The price of aggression, Russia's global isolation. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has come at a steep cost to its international standing. The country is now a pariah state, isolated from the West and facing condemnation from much of the international community. Russia's actions have alienated former partners and emboldened its adversaries, leaving the country diplomatically and economically isolated. The Kremlin's attempts to justify its actions in Ukraine have fallen on deaf ears. The international community has condemned Russia's aggression and demanded that it withdraw its forces from Ukraine. The International Criminal Court has even issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin, accusing him of war crimes. Russia's isolation is likely to have long-term consequences for its economy and its standing in the world. The country is now heavily reliant on a small number of allies, notably China, which is unlikely to provide the same level of support as the West. Section 8, 2024. A turning point? The year 2024 could be a pivotal one for Russia. The combined pressure of economic sanctions, military setbacks, internal unrest, and international isolation could push the country to the brink. Whether Russia can weather the storm and emerge from this crisis intact remains to be seen. However, one thing is certain. The Russia that emerges from this crisis will be a very different country from the one that invaded Ukraine in 2022. The country's economy will be in tatters, its military will be weakened, and its international standing will be in ruins. The world is watching closely to see how the situation in Russia unfolds. The outcome of this crisis will have profound implications for the future of Europe and the international order. Section 9. The world watches. Implications of a Russian decline. A weakened and isolated Russia would have significant geopolitical implications. It could embolden other authoritarian regimes, such as China and Iran, to act more assertively on the world stage. It could also lead to greater instability in regions like the Middle East and Eastern Europe, where Russia has traditionally played a significant role. The decline of Russia would also create opportunities for other countries, such as the United States and its European allies. A weakened Russia would be less able to project power abroad, creating space for the West to advance its interests. The international community must be prepared for the potential consequences of a Russian decline. This includes providing support to countries that are vulnerable to Russian aggression, strengthening alliances, and working to promote democracy and human rights around the world. Section 10. Stay informed. The future of geopolitics. The situation in Russia is fluid and rapidly evolving. It is essential to stay informed about the latest developments and to be aware of the potential implications for the future of geopolitics. By understanding the challenges facing Russia and the potential consequences of its decline, we can better prepare for the future. There are many resources available to stay informed about the situation in Russia, including news websites, think tanks, and government websites. It is important to consult a variety of sources to get a balanced perspective on the issue. The future of Russia is uncertain, but one thing is clear: the country is at a crossroads. The decisions that its leaders make in the coming months and years will have profound implications for the Russian people and for the world.